Hi everyone. For nearly 20 years, a single map has been at the centre of one of Quake's oldest debates, namely whether assisted movement scripts should be allowed in speedruns. But that's all over now. In this video, I'll show how cymx proved that pure skill is enough. In his new world record run on E4M2, he performed a trick considered humanly impossible for decades, making the last remaining movement script in the game irrelevant. I hope you like it. Scripting in Quake is essentially just chaining multiple commands together and executing them all with a single button press. Here's one of the most basic scripts, used by deathmatch players and speedrunners alike, the best nail gun button. You switch to the nail gun, wait a frame, then switch to the super nail gun. If you don't have the super nail gun, then nothing will happen, so you're simply using a single button to select your best option. This seems reasonable, right? You save a bind space on your keyboard and you're not hurting anybody. What do you think of this one? Again, it's a very popular script, the quick rocket. You switch to the grenade launcher, fire one shot, and immediately switch back to the previous weapon. Do we still agree that this is fine? Maybe a couple of purists have a problem, but for the most part this still feels okay, right? What about this? This script does the following. We start recording a demo, then we immediately switch to the grenade launcher, fire a grenade, and switch back to the shotgun. All those wait commands, waiting 5 frames each, are just to give the engine time to react to each new command. To me, this is starting to feel a bit icky, even though I have to admit I've used this exact script in a run before, in order to do an initial grenade jump as early as possible. What if we then add one more step? Now, not only have we automated this first grenade shot and the switch back to the shotgun, we've also set up the perfect angle at the start of the demo, meaning that the grenade goes exactly where we need it to, all on the perfect frame as you start recording. I think we can all agree that this is too much, but you can see how it's only a matter of small additions and iterations before we start to feel like we're cheating. Would just the angle script on its own be too much? For a while, some people were using something similar to turn a perfect 90 degrees at the beginning of runs in order to make their first bunny hop easier. Many deathmatch players have been using scripts of varying complexity to perform perfect rocket jumps with a single key, which to speedrunners feels like just about the cheapest thing you could ever do. But that's the point. The lines between acceptable and unacceptable are, at the end of the day, arbitrary. For speedrunners, E4M2 brought the issue to the forefront. All the way back in 1998, Ilkka Kurkula discovered the map's major skip. The exit door requires a key to pass through, but by curling in the air immediately after entering this teleporter, you can land here on top of this frame. From there, a long and precise bunny hop lets you land on top of the barrier and skip straight to the exit. Over 6 years, the old generation's top players perfected this curl plus bunny combo, at first taking the time to line up the jump and gradually getting faster until the whole thing became one seamless motion: curl, land, and immediately jump. These days that trick is ingrained in most players' muscle memory, and even full game runners rarely fail it. But 20 years ago this was a huge skip and a tough challenge, and Joe was on top of the map with a time of 28 seconds. However, shortly after this record, Wei-Xing Ye shared a troubling discovery. He'd created a small script to perform a series of tiny and impossibly fast side-to-side airstrafes. If you went through the teleporter and hit the script shortcut, you'd simply zigzag your way onto the barrier in midair, 100% reliably at the press of a button. Joe felt like he had no choice and quickly submitted a new 27-second run using the new script. Looking back now, you might think, well, this is dumb, let's ban this immediately. But let's be fair to everyone involved. 2004 was a different time, and people were still discovering what was even possible with movement scripts. It might surprise people to learn that the original box boost in E1M1 by Peter Horvath, probably the most famous trick in all of Quake, use scripted movement for the quick turn, as Peter himself explained in the run's description, several years before Joe's record. The E4M2 trick was far from the first movement script in the game, but it did spark the most debate, mostly because it just felt bad. The curling bunny had become more and more optimized. We suddenly had a very difficult and cool-looking trick being replaced by one button press and some Taz-style mid-air wobbles. It was cheap, but the rules were unclear and the scene was still extremely small, and to be frank, not enough people really cared. Certainly no one was rambling on about it on YouTube like I am now. The run found its way onto the tables, and mods allowed scripts on a case-by-case basis with the condition that you included the script in your demo's description. And then, without much warning, before the debate continued, or before more demos were submitted with scripts of ever-increasing complexity, the Quake scene just kind of fizzled out. If people still had objections to scripts, then they could only mumble to themselves, because no one was playing the game anymore. For a decade, the Quake scene lay dormant, the issue forgotten. Cut to 2020, and Jukebox, Quake's ultimate honourable protagonist, had developed movement so good that he was able to beat Joe's old demo without using the infamous air strafes. He lost a full second by reverting to the old curling jump technique, but gained 2 seconds throughout the rest of the run, using much better lines and Power Bunny patterns. He clearly could have used the same script to save an additional second, but it never sat right with him, and it was his mission to beat any older scripted runs, including Peter's iconic E1M1. As the scene was growing again, moderators decided to finally establish the clean rule we probably should have had 20 years earlier. They weren't going to retroactively remove old runs with scripts, but from this point forward, no movement scripts allowed. A simple blanket ban. It was the right choice, and over the last 5 or so years, every single one of the golden age Quake demos have now been beaten. We can still admire those early runs and appreciate where they led us, and the new generation of runs is all the more impressive because now we know that every single move was done by hand. In 2024, Chambers was on top of the bunny hopping game, and when he discovered a half-second time save by getting through this spike trap more cleanly, he then managed to squeeze another few decimals out with his top-tier bunnies and beat Jukebox's time by 1 more full second. I can't help but laugh at the fact that the gate skip required the FPS trick, which is Quake's only other somewhat controversial technique. It's a bit ironic that that trick ended up being the undoing of Jukebox's honourable no-script demo. But of course Jukebox himself had used the FPS trick plenty of times, and he even discovered the water drop technique, which he used to optimise other runs like E4M1. But I digress. In December 2025, things came full circle. For 20 years, the scripted air strafing had been staring us in the face. And for 20 years, people were getting better and better at strafing. If you saw my Quake Olympics video, then you know that cymx is the current strafe champion, and this year he broke the 100-metre record by adding more and more strafes per jump, even hitting 4 side-to-side wiggles in just a fraction of a second. I'm sure you see where this is going. Strafing had become an art form, but only recently had anyone thought to ask, could we do the E4M2 skip for real? Scriptless? The answer, after all this time, was yep. There you have it. The first player to actually do this trick from a save state was Muty back in 2024, and it looks like he could barely believe it himself. A few months later, cymx also hit it from a save, but it wasn't until recently that he decided to actually try it in a run, and that's not surprising. As with a lot of tricks in modern Quake runs, it's hard to overstate just how unbelievably difficult and precise this trick is. It requires several absolutely perfect strafes within a fraction of a second, and even then you only just barely manage to land on the exit bars. The skip is also at the very end of the run, and just getting to the final teleporter on world record pace already requires hundreds or even thousands of attempts. The new trick also wasn't enough to save a full second on its own. cymx still had to squeeze out yet another few fractions throughout the rest of the run. He did this primarily by adding a second insanely precise jump, absolutely threading the needle here between this bar and the floor, falling straight down to the bottom level. You can see that he gains a good lead over the previous runners there. The rest of the run is, unsurprisingly, bonkers, full of the kind of flawless movement we're actually starting to take for granted now. He makes it look easy, but there really are only a few players on the planet who can bunny this perfectly. And of course, when everything is this tight, it was inevitable that he'd have to endure the usual heartbreaking .0 runs. The other problem with doing the trick manually is that you're swinging from side to side so fast that sticking the landing and going straight through the door is actually an additional huge challenge. Here's a world record pace run foiled at the absolute last moment by a brutal door bump. After 21 years, we can finally put the scripting chapter to rest. We never needed scripts, after all. We just had to get good. In the wake of this run, let's honour all the incredible old demos as we look forward to many more pure skill records in the future. Congrats, cymx, and GG.